Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv, where every day, Monday through Friday, we are training on the FileMaker platform. Today's an exciting day. We have a very exciting schedule set up for you because this morning, at least my time, Claris International shipped the latest version of the Claris FileMaker platform, which is called either 2024 or it's called version 21, depending upon what part of the company at Claris you work for. So it's very, very exciting. The icon is now green officially. If we check the upcoming broadcast schedule, today and tomorrow is official Claris. In fact, I am here at Claris headquarters working with them directly. And the good part is that we have Rick Kalman and Doug Wallis. I think I'm going to say that correctly today. And tomorrow we got Doug again and Connor Brock, who's one of the people that works under the hood. He's actually a legit engineer. So whenever we have him on the show, he's a little nervous because engineers don't normally talk to end customers, but we don't bite. We want to be friendly here and encourage every Claris engineer, if they want to come and talk to us, to do that. Every time they show up, we learn something, which is the whole point of this. Then this is a very interesting set of live streams starting today. And for the next 9 episodes, we're going to have various other professionals within the FileMaker community. We brought them in. We've talked to them. On Thursday and Friday, we got Wim DeCourt from Soliant, which is really interesting. Great guy. His backup will be Jacob Taylor. And these two characters are going to be talking about Let's Encrypt, and then kind of a server open Q&A for Friday. Then next week, Monday, is kind of an interesting conversation, a little bit more of open Q&A, but we're going to be kind of plowing through the bugs that have been fixed in this release of FileMaker. There's over 200 fixes in Pro and 100 to 200 in Server. It's a lot. Almost everyone has some sort of pet peeve they run into. It's probably been fixed in this release, so you want to check that out. Tuesday and Wednesday next week, we got Vince Bonato and the team from Beeswax. They're going to be covering AI, and I told them to make it simple as possible, kind of step-by-step cookie cutter. You're going to see a little bit of this today, because today is kind of an overall summary, but we've got action-packed for the next, all the way through Friday of next week. And then Corn Walker from Proof Guys will be the end of next week. Corn Walker, probably one of the smartest, and I mean this with all honesty and humility, one of the smartest people in the FileMaker community. There's a handful of them that are just brilliant, just amazing to watch these people go. Some of your heads may hurt. Bring aspirin, Tylenol, whatever you need for a headache, because when they're done, your head will be full. So with that in mind, I want to welcome Rick Kalman and Doug Wallis. And so, Rick, you are kind of a director level person in product management at Claris. Can you give us the...
Yeah, I'm a director in product management at Claris, primarily focusing on the FileMaker platform, and have been doing that since Rich was in short pants. So it's been a while. And yeah, and I'm here with Douglas. I'll introduce in a little bit more detail in a second. He's going to present most of this, but I wanted to take a little bit of a divergence. And if you have not been aware, or if you are aware, back when we did Claris Engage in Austin, Texas in early February, during the keynote, we announced that we will publish a public roadmap for both the product as well as the marketing activities. I looked at that today and looked at the highlights, because once we publish that, you all can vote it up. And some of the key things that people were really excited about by their upvotes were enhancements we're making to the JSON arrays, or execute the data API script step that now supports write operations, or now you can set error logging script step to also support WebDirect and the data API. People were really delighted to see support for upload and download through the admin API, native support for Let's Encrypt. There are also a lot of support for parameters and script names in the scripts that are calling back perform on server, so you can get the information back, and native support for, this is a mouthful, vector embeddings and semantic search. So I'm going to tell you that and a lot more was just launched today. If you go to that roadmap, you'll see all of that stuff moved to in market to released, and then we'll update it again. So with that, I'm going to introduce Douglas Wallis, who is the principal product manager for the FileMaker release, the mover and shaker that is behind this release, making it happen and getting to this point. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Douglas to begin talking about what we've released.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for that, Rick. So my name is Doug Wallis. As you get from the accent, I'm actually half French. Actually work across the Atlantic, so I'm based in France, in Brittany. I've been working at Claris for close to 10 years. It will be 10 years in about 4 weeks' time. Used to be an SE and moved to the PM team around when the pandemic started hitting because we need more people basically to actually know the product, to actually work on it. My role basically, and I'm saying it nicely, is to try to actually get the customer voice understood by the engineering team. Basically, everything that everyone's been complaining about the product not actually doing what it's meant to be doing. I work with engineering and go to market to make sure that we can actually build what is required by our customer base so that they can make better solution out of FileMaker. I'm going to go through a slide deck. You might think that some of it is actually kind of marketing wise, but the idea is basically is we want you to understand what we've done, how we're getting there, and where the product is going to evolve. So FileMaker 2024 version number 21 essentially is going to keep this kind of same rhythm that we used to have for 2019. We want to have quarterly updates to the products that we actually create. The way we actually do the update is based on feedback from users. We don't basically come up with sort of new features and stuff like that out of our pure geniuses. It's all coming down to the use cases that we have from customers. So once we have more communication with our ETS partners, our Claris partners, the community, we can actually make the right decision in what we actually sort of build. And so the one thing which is kind of cool for me is because we're having multiple events across the next sort of 10 days across FileMaker 24. Even if I don't go through all my slides on the stuff, other people are going to be talking about it today. But I want to get you through some of the main points around what we've done for this release. So Rick Kalman, Director of Product Management, kind of my mentor in the company, and I've been at Claris 10 years product management for about 4 years now. So where we work on basically with FileMaker 2024, product version 21.0.1 for the time being, is essentially helping you get AI capabilities inside your app without having you to actually restart everything from scratch. And we want you to be able to actually get more value from your data, which sounds kind of straightforward, but it's basically there's going to be a bit of learning around it. And there's going to be basically a different way of looking at how you do searching inside your systems. So before we go into AI, we just want to make sure people understand where FileMaker lands. Basically, FileMaker is the king of custom app development. It's the number one on the market. It's been there for 30 years. Everyone's been trying to actually sort of overtake it or doing better than we've been doing it. And because of our great community, it's been really hard for people to actually sort of get there. But when you work in the custom app development world, there's 3 aspects that are really essential to actually make sure your application, whether it's internal or for external customers, is going to survive competitors. Number 1 is integration. You need to be able to actually integrate your system with new and old tech. And FileMaker has been really good at that. You can use ODBC really nicely. You can use APIs if you know a bit more about text, but then you can use AI now. You can use OData. There's a lot more things that you can do. And because your app can actually move along with those new techs, it's going to basically make sure your application is better than before. Efficiency is automation, but not just within your FileMaker app. It needs to be around your admin side of it. Everything you do on FileMaker server needs to be easily modifiable by the IT management or by the users so that they can do whatever they need around it. And again, the customer experience. When people see new features in other products on the internet, they expect that same version to actually be inside of FileMaker. And especially nowadays with the usage of iPhone and iPads, a lot more people are looking to see what they have in every type of iPhone app within the FileMaker app. So we're helping you basically make sure all of the sort of 3 elements can be done easily inside of FileMaker. Like Richard was mentioning, new version, new icons. That's not really new. We just basically changed the color scheme so that the whole color scheme across the Claris platform is the same. So Connect, Studio, and Claris have the same color scheme, green, black, and white. So first, basically part of the messaging around what we have done for FileMaker 2024 is around AI and specifically semantic search. So with native support for semantic search, you can now enable new ways to learn from your data you already have. Before I go into sort of details, what is semantic search? That is the first question everyone has. Easy way to actually see the difference between what you used to actually do in terms of searching, which we call lexical search, is lexical search is what you do in Google. It's what you do in your CRM when you click in the last name field and you click you type in the value and you expect that value to be returned by an index. Basically is you type a word, the engine search for that word inside an index. Kind of straightforward, but imagine being very sort of two-dimension. There's no kind of effect. You look for a word, you get the result back. And it's really quick because it's all based on an index. It doesn't have to actually search too far away. As soon as it finds the word you're looking for, it's going to bring it back. Semantic searching is how AI basically is getting kind of useful because it's going to look for similar words or similar context around the words or the phrases that you send to the language, the model that has your data that it's learning from. So the example that we always give is you enter system, you type into a description field the word boots, it's going to look for that word boots and only that word boots. With semantic searches, it's going to look for shoes, sneakers, anything that's related to that word because it can understand the context around that word and it's going to give you more information. So essentially what 24 allows you to do is get new insight from your data. You have great systems, you've been building for a long time, and AI is really going to help you basically leverage the extra insight that you can from your data. And so the way we are doing it is essentially bringing semantic searches so that you can do natural language questions to your apps. And the way we're doing it, like we've always done at Claris, is we create the hard part of communicating with an outside service. So in FileMaker 2023 and in FileMaker 19, you could start leveraging AI, but you had to actually use insert parameters everywhere. You had to actually know the endpoints of the servers you had to talk to. You had to actually know quite a lot of information. And so for a lot of users, it was basically kind of a pain to actually sort of get in there. So we took it on ourselves to actually create the actions, the script steps, and the functions to make your life a lot easier. The main one you're going to be using once you actually leverage a large language model is perform semantic find. Essentially, is you're going to be looking at a container field inside your FileMaker solution that has all the linking basically within all the different words or the context stored locally. So essentially, you're doing a search locally, not on the LLM. The LLM is for the learning of your data, and the results of that learning goes into a container field inside the FileMaker, and then you search that container. The other aspect of it, basically, which is always vital for us, is we don't want to block you in an environment. There is no need for us to actually force you to use public cloud or public cloud LLMs or open LLMs. We want you to be able to use whatever types of LLMs on the market. And so we're giving basically the options in this first version when you're configuring the account to either talk to OpenAI because it is the biggest one on the planet currently. It is the one that has the most amount of data, that does the most amount of updates. So you can actually kind of talk to it quite easily. But we do understand that in a lot of markets, you don't want to actually send your data to the biggest provider out there. You want to create your own environment so you can do your own learning.
Real quick question. LLM, for people who are new to this conversation, is basically large language model in plain English.
Large language model, yeah. So it's plain English. Imagine it as a 3D version of a database. So imagine basically is you take words and instead of actually being flat, they are in a 3D environment. So when I type in the word shoes, it lives in space, and then there's a string that basically goes to sneakers. There's another one that's going to go to clothing. There's another one that's going to go to fashion. So everything is basically linked in this massive environment. And then you send your data, and then your data kind of fits in that environment. And then we create at the end of it a file where it's actually kind of positioning those values one to the other. So the result value that you get is just a bunch of numbers. You can't make head or tails of what it means, but that's basically what the engines use to actually do the search. And so you're going to have like similarity between values, and it puts that into space.
Okay. So
That's
real
the
quick,
easy side of understanding. That's pretty much what it
so
is.
that lives, so in terms of like installing software, and I'm asking these questions so to bring everyone along. So if I have a Mac or Windows laptop, I install Pro maybe on that. I have my FileMaker server somewhere. The LLM, does that live on any of my existing hardware or does that live somewhere else?
So two options. You can use the LLM from OpenAI that lives on the cloud. You don't actually have to do anything apart from getting an OpenAI account. There's a free version that you can get from OpenAI that will give you a specific amount of free requests that you can do. And then depending on the amount of data, you can go to the paid version of OpenAI, which is a bit more expensive because the amount of data they're going to send it is basically going to cost you. So if you send a CRM system of 100,000 customers and a lot of data around it, it's going to basically maybe cost you quite a bit to actually get the engine to actually run around it. If you want to basically learn locally, you can actually run it on a Mac or Ubuntu. Essentially, you need something that is kind of quick at doing AI work. The MacBooks, or basically anything with the Apple chip, is really made for that because it has GPUs. You could do it on powerful PCs. Ideally, you want to either go to a hosting company that has specific machine for AI. AWS has them, Azure, or the big ones, and then you can actually start playing around with those. When you first start out, normally what I say to people is try it with OpenAI, see what you can actually get out of it, and eventually you can actually get your OpenLLM. There's a big company in called Hugging Face that has pretty much all the open LLMs on the planet. You go to that website and it'll give you all variation depending on your needs. So some are specifically made for medical environment, legal environment, any type of environment, and you can actually sort of pick from those. Mind you, the size of an LLM can be quite small. So the smaller ones will be about 7 gig. The very large one will be 150 gig. Plus then your data you put inside, so they can actually grow to be quite big eventually. So you need a bit of space to be able to actually have that.
Yeah, I didn't want to wander off too far from what the
Yeah.
conversation. Some of the people here are not aware. So this AI LLM stuff, that's why Nvidia's making money. They were like, and I don't know how they're doing. They have a big building in the Santa Clara Valley down here, Cupertino, and suddenly they make all the chips that are really useful for the AI. And suddenly their stock is riding high and they're selling as much hardware as they possibly can. And they're doing quite well. So the trick is going to be, and I think Wim is going to talk about this a little bit, maybe that's next week. But the idea that if you send it outside data, your FileMaker data outside to some LLM, then your data has left your company. What does that mean for security? So that's a bigger conversation. We won't probably talk about that right now, but these are the things that we have to consider as we start digging into AI.
Which is why we've built the like, especially on the configure side of it, we want to give you developers complete control. If you want to go for the OpenAI, you can go for that one. If you want to go for a very specific environment for yourself, then we give you the option to actually go for that. Again, we've got logging across the board, so all the troubleshooting can be done quite easily to figure out what goes on and what actually doesn't work. Again, basically, the idea is we don't want you to actually change your system. It just semantic search basically goes on top of what you already built. So workflows will work the same way. There is pretty much nothing to change. The only thing going to change is how you actually do the searching inside your system. So maybe before you were just using quick search and typing keywords. Now you're going to be able to actually ask questions. In this first version, we can grab data from inside fields, or we can send text. We haven't got it to work with PDF. That's going to come very soon in a 20.1 release, where people will be able to actually sort of leverage PDF and get the LLM to grab the data from a PDF, search inside it, and then give you the results.
PDFs that are in containers, right? Is that what we're saying?
In containers, yeah.
So if you have big PDFs with lots of data that you want the AI to be aware of, then we could reference that, and that'll be a dot release in the future. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so the story that we talk about AI isn't new. You've been able to do stuff in FileMaker 19 with Core ML, using Xcode to build your own models around images and a bit of text. REST API basically in FileMaker 2023 allow you to already talk to the AI, but it's a lot more work that has to be done to actually sort of get that. So we came up basically with a list of a few functions and script steps to kind of easily get you to talk to the AI or log into the AI, send your data, get the data back into a container, and then do the search inside that container and basically get results. You'll see that some of the thing, and when people start playing with it and they're going to release notes and information, they'll have more information. But the two that we added, which are actually quite useful, is the token count and the last step token used, to be able to actually kind of track how much data you're sending so that you can make sure that the cost of leveraging OpenAI doesn't go through the roof. Because sometimes when you send a lot of information and OpenAI charges you per token, it's kind of cheap per token, but eventually when you send a huge amount of data, the cost can actually be quite high. So you want to make sure people have a way to actually control the amount of the data they actually send across. Before I go to the next one, I'm just going to do a quick demo of a file that was built by Ronnie Rios, who did a session at Claris Engage. So this is a small FileMaker solution. Essentially, what I have is I've got 24 documents. They are text files taken from our help guide, plus the terms and conditions for Connect. Basic text files that we actually put into containers. And then every time we actually add them, the text file is sent to the OpenAI account. And then we get back the embedding, which is actually a container that has all the similarities with all the words. So when I basically are going question to this chat, I'm actually inside the account based on the data that's referenced in this document. So if I ask is, who is Rick Kalman? It doesn't know because there's no reference to Rick in this document. So he can't basically answer the question. So it doesn't know anything about it. I can only ask it questions that is basically stored in the system. So the first one I'm going to basically go is what is curl? So basically I've got a document that has all the color options. I just want to know what it is. When you go through the help, sometimes it's kind of weird to actually be able to actually figure it out. So what it's doing in this case, it's basically sending information. The information has been sent, and it's compiled it so that it can actually sort of give you a reply. And we tell it, the engine, that we want the data to be answered in a proper English sentence. We just don't want it to actually give us all the location of the file. We want the information to be done properly. Richard.
Question. So when we have 24 documents over here on the left, we pre-staged or pre-processed these with the LLM in advance.
Yeah.
So then when you ask the question over on the right over here, we don't have to reshoot the 24 documents. We pre-cook it or pre-bake, whatever we want to call that. Okay.
Yeah. And so the way it's doing it, so the result basically is this is the only thing we send back to the, I would say the AI agent to actually write the sentence. So the data is actually stored locally. So when I do the search Wallis curl, it's doing it locally in my container. Then it gets basically the similarities of all the words that gets sent back basically to the AI, the chat engine of it, and it writes the sentence and it gives it back to us so that we have proper answers. We could skip basically the last part and just have basically the location of where the text was found, but then the meaning is not really there. The other thing is basically so we've done a lot of work on the execute FileMaker data API. And so I know there's updates but I don't know how to use it. So I can actually write a question saying, how do I create records using FileMaker execute FileMaker data API? So if it doesn't crash because ChatGPT today had some issues, it basically finds all the information inside my documents and then sends it back basically to the AI to actually write it in a proper way, just like ChatGPT does.
Nice.
So essentially, it's grabbing the information into my documents and it writes me basically the answer. I could read the document and go through everything, but this is kind of a nice way because it's doing it through 24 documents. And every time it's going to tell me, so you can't see at the bottom, but it tells me where it's actually found the information. So now I can use, and I know how to actually sort of use that across the board.
Someone's asking can they get the sample file for this, or is this a sample file they could ever have?
So we are working to actually sort of create one for you so that people can actually leverage that. There's other stuff we're going to put on the community, both from us and partners, so that people can really sort of start playing with it and get an idea of what they can do with it. So once we worked on the AI, the other aspect that we actually had to actually work on is everything around adding new script set and functions to FileMaker Pro so that you can build faster apps, better integration, basically everything you wanted to be able to actually do in a nicer way. So we've spent quite a lot of time on the data API, the JSON, the transactions, and all of that is coming on feedback from the community on how and where we should actually do improvements. So first off, essentially execute FileMaker data API. In FileMaker 2023, you can pretty much read data, which is kind of useful because it's kind of quick, the JSON engine, to be able to actually do queries. We've added all the other things you could do around the FileMaker data API. So all the right options, the delete, the modify, the duplicate, everything you need to be able to do everything that you want, essentially through the FileMaker data API. And the one thing which is really nice with this is the option to be able to write to any type of layouts in your solution without having to actually leave the context you're based. So you could be on your home page, you can be on your contacts page, and you want to write data in some other part of the system. You don't need to actually sort of move from one place to the other. You can do it straight away within your script and using the FileMaker sort of JSON API. And that gives you kind of a lot of speed improvement, but it just makes your life a lot easier as a developer because that way there's a bit less traveling around the place. With a transaction is subscript, so we started having script transaction back in the later version of 19. Again, we want to make it easier for developers to be able to control as much as they can the way that actually script runs. So we've added basically the option to be able to revert transaction in subscripts. It just makes life a lot easier, especially on your business logics. You can pinpoint exactly where you want the error handling to actually stop your script. And so it just makes everyone's life a lot easier. This is a big request by a lot of partners. We work really hard to actually sort of get it to this point. So it's kind of nice to actually have that. Again, next one, JSON make array, really again to simplify calculations when you want write an array in a JSON, just makes everyone's life a lot easier. Kind of straightforward, but it's a big plus. And the last one is, again, people requesting is when I use the get live text inside my images, it's kind of nice to be able to actually get the result of what the engine can see, but I need to know where it's on the image. Now, basically, with the JSON, we can give you the positioning of the word that the system actually found we're using get live text.
Real quick for everyone wondering more depth in some of these, the revert transaction and subscripts apparently is a really big deal. I wasn't fully understanding how big of a deal it was. And so Corn Walker from Proof Guys will be here next week for a day of tearing that apart and why it's such a big deal. And then he's spending a second day on JSON improvements, right? JSON make array and various JSON things. So Corn Walker will be gracing us with his awesomeness next week on these two topics. We do have the first question here. I guess we just want to cover some low-hanging fruit. With the release of FileMaker 2024, which the version number technically is 19. There's a new server, new copy of Pro, new Go, right? The three essential kind of things that are there. Also the FileMaker, Claris FileMaker Cloud, their software as a service, that'll be updated as well. Will is asking, or Mike is one of our Mikey, our live stream people is asking, will FileMaker Pro 2024 work without a server? And I'm assuming he's talking about AI.
All of that works on the cloud or local file, and on the server. So it's up to you to decide how you want to use it. You can use all of that inside a FileMaker app on a go with no connection to the internet, and it will work the same way. Unless you want to talk to the AI, but basically is you don't need server to be able to use any of those features.
All right, great. There's a comment here from Gian Andrea says, no one's talking about the development environment and debug. More or less, there are no changes since 2024. So in terms of the development environment, everything we're discussing here are new capabilities within that. In terms of the mechanics of debugging the script debugger, I'm not aware of any changes in this release. However, I will say, and if Rick wants to add something here, application lifecycle management is a term that Claris is now using, but it's this whole idea of from the time you give birth to a file or a solution, and then how you update it and patch it. That is a hot topic at Claris, and that is leading Claris down the road of being able to do patches against files. inputting XML into a file and having it absorb a new layout, new scripts, things like that. That's going to be a really big deal. Rick, you just want to dovetail on that real quick?
Yeah, we have run a series of kitchens, and we have one coming up with a cohort of essentially hosting providers and solution bundle agreement providers, people that essentially provide services or software to others, and who take advantage of a lot of the developer tools we have now for automations. And we got together with them to give feedback on our three developer tools, our fast data migration tool, our FileMaker admin API, and then the patching part, which is the sort of the nirvana, if you will. And we're focusing on those three tools in the larger sphere of application lifecycle management, as Rich laid out, all the way from I'm creating it. Maybe I have a development server, a testing server, and a deployment server, all the way to troubleshooting using some of the tools that are out there, and then being able to patch without having to do those gross updates. As an example, during the kitchen, we had one of the participants who is a very popular SBA. And you all know this, used to be that it would take, he'd have to bring his system down to update it, take him 3 days in a prayer, come down Friday night, hope to God I'm back up on Monday. Now it's using these tools, 30 minutes. That's a huge ROI because that means he spends the additional time adding value for his customers or in what he provides. And so we're going back after those tools, getting feedback on what else do we need to do with those to make them integral so that it's much more easy and automated to keep once you've built it and deployed it, to keep it up and running and patched. So really exciting project that we're working on that Doug is involved with me on that as well.
For those of you who will watch the live streams, we have this conversation. We talk about the Star Trek transporter, to put it in a term that most people understand. And that's basically molecular deconstruction of a FileMaker solution. And it's basically done with, Claris calls it serialization of the XML, down to perfect fidelity, right? The idea with the Star Trek is that you beam yourself off the planet, you take your FileMaker solution, you beam it into XML, and then you reverse the process, and it perfectly reproduces with high fidelity the FileMaker solution. Once that is done, and super, because it's about 90 some odd percent done. So the idea is that once it does perfect reproduction of the file, you could take the XML, the code, take this script, take these layouts, take these items, and grab them off of maybe your updated solution and glue them, beam them into the solution that's running, right? And so suddenly you don't have to add those things. They're just injected. The word injection is always kind of used maliciously sometimes, but you're injecting a new features, you're patching new features. That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. And that's Rick is talking about that. And I'm just making it more interesting by saying Star Trek. So there you go.
Cool. I'll quickly go. So the next one, it's a simple one, but again, it's around the integration. So OData, it's an open data protocol. It's the new way of doing ODBC. So if you've been using database engines like SQL, whatever, for a long time, and you talk to FileMaker, you can use the ESS that we have inside the FileMaker. Essentially, it's using basically ODBC. ODBC has issues in terms of the security around it because everything is sent as plain text. It's a lot easier for people to actually sort of hack your system. OData has a really sort of nicer way of doing the integration. We are trying to actually sort of get as much as we can of the compliance basically inside the FileMaker. It's going to come in sort of small steps. If you've never used OData, we have a guide on our website to actually sort of start going through it. But more and more, you'll see that it's basically something that's picking up nicely because it allows you to do very sort of complex integration with different systems. And FileMaker is actually very good for that. So we've done some work to help out people on that environment. And again, we've been adding small enhancements just to make developers' life a lot kind of nicer. So one is called the Open Quickly shortcut. Essentially, you do Apple key or Command key, and you have a kind of a spot-like search box where you can type in keywords that could be found inside your tables, your relation graph, your scripts, your databases, so you can actually go quickly to it. But the idea basically is you have big systems, you have hundreds of layouts, you have thousands of scripts. You won't go to a specific script to manage your, staff, import, whatever. Instead of actually opening the script workspace, going through the list of whatever, how many thousand scripts you have, you basically just type in, it looks for it, you click on it, and basically loads it up for you. So it's a really nice way to be able to actually move around the app a lot quicker. Local notification, now is being supported on FileMaker Pro. So we had that before on Go. Now you can leverage that on Pro, both on the Mac and Windows. And the last one, again, just to give you more insight into your apps, the import log now includes all the themes being imported and the value list. A couple of new sort of slight tweaks to make just life a lot easier. Here's a quick sort of screenshot of how it looks like the open quickly. So in my case, I'm looking for staff, and it's going to show me all the layouts and the scripts that have the word staff. I just click on it, and it's going to take me there. On the other side, you can see notifications, FileMaker Pro. You can control everything around it, which basically is the text inside it, the buttons, what the buttons do, how long you actually want the notification to stay on the screen, and when it basically gets loaded from the system. Last part of it basically is around what we call the PSR, performance, stability, and reliability. We have a lot of engineers working on that. Essentially, it's about fixing issues inside Pro, inside Server, inside Go, based on your feedback, so that we make sure that everything kind of works properly. Obviously, there's so many different use cases of what can be done with FileMaker. Even when we do our testing, sometimes we would miss issues. And sometimes, because we leverage a lot of third-party tools, they might act strangely after an update. And so with the feedback from the community, we are able to actually sort of fix them. On the server side, we've been working kind of heavily just to make everyone life a lot easier. So with FileMaker Server 2024, native support for certificates and optimized console control means administrators can deploy more securely with less hassle. So basically, the job of using FileMaker Server should be boring as hell. You set it up, you set up your script, and it should just be running. You should not basically be looking at it every day thinking, oh my God, what's going to go bad? You could look at your logs to actually have an idea of how it's being used and stuff like that, but you should not be moving too much when it's being set up. And we want that to be kind of straightforward. One of the areas where we think it's really important is around the security aspect of your server. So most people basically, when they have FileMaker Server, they'll have a file hosted on the systems where they've set up local accounts. A username could be first name and then the password. And sometimes they'll use the extra security from developer utilities to actually have encryption at rest at a higher level. But the one thing basically that is always important in terms of a server, there needs to be an SSL certificate. So a secured layer certificate, just to make sure that it's harder for people to actually get into your system. Even if they can actually sort of break part of it, because of what is in the SSL certificate, it's going to take ages for them to be able to get any data out of that. So we've had that for a long time inside the FileMaker. But we've had a lot of requests from people saying it's nice, but I don't want to spend $100 to actually have a certificate, or I don't want to spend too much. I want to use Let's Encrypt. So Let's Encrypt is a worldwide organization that believes security is vital and everyone should be leveraging security in their systems. And so the two aspects of Let's Encrypt, the one that everyone loves is that it is free of charge. So you don't actually have to pay for it. The only thing you have to pay for is the domain name, so claris.com or whatever name you have. But the certificate itself is free of charge. And it's kind of simple to actually set up. There's a website, it kind of tells you around it. There's going to be a session in a couple of days to actually go through it. But the very best aspect of the SSL certificate is that it's all based on the fact that your certificate have to be renewed regularly. It's not because you've actually paid for it that you can actually do it every 2 years. You should actually have your renewals of your certificate to make sure security is better done regularly. And so we build a system script inside the FileMaker server so that the process of updating your SSL certificate with Let's Encrypt is done automatically for you every 30 days or 60 days, depending on what you want to use. For version 1, this is going to work on macOS and Ubuntu, and we'll bring it out eventually to the Windows world. And I can't remember if it's on a couple of days, there's going to be a whole session on Let's Encrypt where people are going to basically show you how you actually set it up and how it works. And it's really kind of straightforward.
Yeah, that's on our schedule for Thursday with Wim DeCourt here at 1 o'clock at this live stream. So Thursday at 1 o'clock, Wim DeCourt from Soliant will be here, and they'll be doing Let's Encrypt in detail.
This one really quick. We're going to talk more tomorrow when Connor joins me, when we go more into sort of under the hood of FileMaker server. But essentially, we are bringing smaller tools a bit everywhere inside the admin console, and we are recreating some of the views so that we just make everyone's life a lot easier. The big one we've been working on is around the schedules, and we'll show you tomorrow how it all works and how it's there to really help make life a lot easier of the admin. The last one is around what we're talking about, the application lifecycle management. Essentially, it's really there to actually help the developer, especially when they have lot solution, to be able to move from a development environment to a production environment. Even though we love the aspect of being able to actually do live coding inside the FileMaker app, because it's one of the great features, when you work in larger organization or larger applications, you want to make sure that you can actually sort of test it. The biggest pain point when you do FileMaker development is if you have two files, and one for your development and one production, copying and pasting the layouts, the script, all the stuff is very much a pain. So the idea is basically to create tools around it to make your life a lot easier. And so we are adding new features to the save as XML. So basically, when you like Richard was saying, is you're transforming a FileMaker file into XML. And so basically all the code actually pinpoint everything, how the object works. We've made some enhancements to add even extra information. So it's easier for people to be able to actually manage the content out of that. But even around the API, we've been adding new features so that it's easier for people to be able to actually upload and download files from the server. So if you have a production file that you want to take offline, grab it locally, modify it by using the save as XML, and then re-upload that, you can actually automate a lot of the aspect. Again, the FileMaker develop tools, we are adding new features so that people can actually do more things, essentially renaming files. It's a developer request, and we worked on it quite rapidly to actually get that on board. On the Go side, so Go essentially what we're trying to do is actually bring parity of features that we have on the Pro to the Go environment. There's a lot of features that we've had for a long time, but we don't actually have parity. When you want to basically insert inside a container any type of binary files, before you had a limit, pretty much you could do PDF, images, videos, but there was a lot of files that basically weren't working properly. So we worked on that, so nowadays you can actually use it. Why are we doing this? It's because nowadays there's a lot more people working on a daily basis just on an iPad. And now the iPads have way more CPUs, more RAM, more space, and they can handle way more jobs that normally were basically just left out to the FileMaker Pro side of it. Again, for the text format, we've enabled now to actually do a lot more import through the scripting engine of any type of text-based format. Before that was kind of limited. The only thing we still can't do is basically around XML and Excel. That's to do with the sandboxing environment where the file lives. We're going to try to actually see what we can do around it, but for the time being, you'll still have to actually do it on the Pro. And then the last one I mentioned before, the get lifecycle as JSON, just to give you extra metadata around your images and the text actually spit out on your code. A couple of new features. So we have the support for widgets on iPhone and iPads. Essentially, if you haven't used widgets, it's kind of a shortcut to some of the features inside the app. What we've done for FileMaker, kind of straightforward, is your favorites will be shown in one of the widgets. So there's two formats, a large one and a small one, and you can add your favorites to that widget. You can have up to 5 favorites. When you click on it, it basically launches the file automatically. We've added a feature of launching automatically one app when you start FileMaker Go. So they had a feature that we had on the Pro. Now you can have the same working on your Go. If you have an MDM, you can actually code that in your MDM. So if you're sending a FileMaker Go to 50 employees through an MDM, you can actually control that. And the last one was to be able to actually move from FileMaker Go when you want to open the URL to go directly to Safari and not actually do it within FileMaker Go, which was causing issues sometimes where you were trying to copy data back and forth between Safari and FileMaker Go. So this is a quick screenshot of how the widget looks. on an iPhone when you're having 4 favorites. If you have another one, basically all the lines get smaller, but that's basically what it looks like. You can't control the color scheme for the time being. We're going to try to actually work on that. But the background is basically using the dark mode or light mode. So depending on the mode, the color in the background will change, but the rest will be the same for everyone. And again, like Rick was saying around the application lifecycle management, same for AI, we want to make sure people are aware that they're not alone. The fact that we have Rachel doing sort of great live streams daily with great partners is really going to help people kind of go and start looking at AI with a different sort of mindset and a view of going is, it's not really that hard for me to get inside it. And people out there will be happy to help me. And there's going to be tools, resources for people to actually start leveraging it as quickly as they can. So in terms of the AI, the semantic search engines, Rodney Rios, who's the product manager at FileMaker, who's been really focusing on AI, created some demo files when he did Claris Engage back in February. We've put those files on our community page. There's a section for AI. They're really kind of straightforward to actually sort of go into. All you need essentially is to create an OpenAI account, and then you can actually start leveraging it. Then we had Jonathan Equality, who created an add-on based on those files. They were showcased when we did our first, what we call community live sessions. So similar to what Richard is doing, we stole the idea, and then Claris is now doing the same stuff. We do that on a bi-monthly cadence.
Grand Theft Auto, steal it. All right, got it.
Completely. We're going to do another. There was another one recently with Chris Hippolyte on AI. Rick and I are going to do another one towards the end of June on talking about sort of FileMaker. So we want to make sure that there is discussion and that people basically really get a feeling that if they want to start leveraging AI, there's going to be help for them out there on the community.
Hey, Doug, can I interject here? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to make a prediction. In that, this is all new. People are trying to get their heads around it. It's a vast territory. It's moving very fast, right? But people will go to these things, look at these files, attend these webinars, and begin to get their feet wet. And my prediction is by the time we get to the next Engage, you all are going to be blowing our socks off with what you do with this technology, because it's a new dimension and a way to interact with data you already have. So I think that this thing's going to have legs. Similar to when we introduced the data viewer, I remember the web viewer object. People said, why would you already got a data, web browser? Why would you do that? And it's like, oh, okay, think about it. What if the data in your database could drive what is going on with your web viewer? And then it turned out that web viewer objects essentially could run things like JavaScript. And we had an Engage where people just blew our socks off with what they were doing with that side effect. This is going to be like that on steroids, is my prediction.
Very, very exciting. We do have some questions along the way. I'm going to kind of circle back to these. Some of you have been very patient about this. Peter says, so right on the AI conversation, Peter says, I have a server and 15 clients in a database and a partridge in a pear tree. And I'm concerned if I use all this AI stuff that it'll trash my network. How much load is this going to cause? Blah, blah, blah about network performance.
So the thing is essentially is the first time you actually send your data, that's where the learning basically is done. And then you get your data back. So the similarity is inside the container.
So the training of it on the front end is the heavy part, right?
The heavy part. And you would actually sort of do it once. And then eventually every time you have a small update, you would actually send part of it. And then it just sends the AI will actually send you the changes. So you wouldn't actually every time send everything and then get everything back. If you have a lot of moving parts inside your systems, and I mean about like new fields, new layouts, and a lot of records, then eventually you're going to send quite a bit of data. But if essentially your system stays the same and it's just data being changed, then once you've actually started the first, I would say, learning exercise or the training exercise, afterwards, the search is actually done locally. You are searching inside the container, inside your solution. If you don't want to basically do the chat aspect and send information to the AI to actually write proper sentences, you can actually get it to just give you the result into a variables or whatever, and actually work from that. So once you actually have the training data inside your system, there is no need to actually talk to the outside. You can do everything locally inside your FileMaker server, and because it's just looking for a container, it will be kind of quick. So it shouldn't affect too much your system.
If you have a lot of data and you're going to train the LLM, right? If the server's outside your network, then I would do it on a Friday night when everyone's gone or something. And that way it doesn't bother everyone.
Yeah, and depending on, I mean, if you have a lot of data, look at the pricing of OpenAI. Just go to the webpage, look at the sales, kind of look at basically how they charge for tokens. I think they've got kind of like a calculator in the background that gives you an idea of the price. If you send huge amount of data, it's going to start costing you. So, which is why we have the Open LLM sort of function where you could actually run it locally. So no data will actually go out to the internet. Everything can actually be run locally. So if you have even like a MacBook from 2 years ago with the M1 chip, it will be able to actually learn from that data as well. So that's one of the aspects. Depending on use cases, you can use OpenLLMs locally, or you can actually send stuff to OpenAI depending on the amount of data.
Yep.
On that note, we still have there's a lot of podcasts being done by partners. There's quite a few demo files being done by partners that you can actually easily find on the internet that will showcases example of how they've been leveraging AI for the solution. The one from Yoris Arts, he has a great demo file that is on the internet, and that one is really nice because he's done it on the aspect of using AI as a research assistant versus an assistant actually does the code for him. So it's a nice way of looking at what can be done. The Academy, again, the Claris Academy is going to be improved, where we're going to have more information on how to actually leverage AI. And we have partners that basically will actually sort of help you out, give information. There's a AI session on live stream later on this week. So there's going to be a lot of information around for people to actually start moving with that. Yeah, last one is basically is optimization. So like Rick was mentioning, the serverless XML is something we've been working really hard, and it's being leveraged by great tools like Inspector Pro, Base Element, and FM Perception. There's going to be a new version of Inspector Pro coming out very shortly. It's a great tool. If you've never looked into it, or even the few of them, go to their website, leverage it, because by exporting this XML representation of your FileMaker file into a system, it's going to be able to actually sort of look at everything you've done and tell you where you have fields that have no value in the layout, or layouts that are actually missing fields. And it's a great way to be able to actually sort of figure out what's wrong with your solution. And then you go into the step of optimizing it, and you go, well, if I'm doing this, I might as well start with AI, and eventually you start working on your solution to make it even more powerful. And it's going to make the life of the end user way better, because everything's going to be a lot quicker for them. Again, if you need help, engage with a partner. They're really great for that in case you need that. Quick last one, basically, as Rick was mentioning, the lifecycle management with hosting providers. Proof Guide got this great tool called AutoFMS that allows you to leverage the third-party, great tools that we have, so that you can move a file from development to production really easily. Devon, again, works on the same principle. Really straight, really nice app done by a European company. And again, you can talk to hosting partners that have great tools as well. But we want to get people to actually sort of be aware that the fact that even though live coding inside the FileMaker is a great bonus, in some cases, it's better to be careful and use the tools that we provide on the side to make sure that you have a testing environment, or dev environment, testing environment, and production environment, which is why we give you 3 licenses of FileMaker Server to install when you have a contract, so that at least you do everything kind of properly.
Yeah, awesome job. So I'm going to do a question cleanup here. So David, one of our live streamers, is saying, so some users have requirements, some customers have requirements about navigating their way around private networks, and, if they can't really send their data outside the company, GDPR and all this sort of stuff. And so once again, this is why at the beginning of the live stream, I slowed these guys down and asked them. The AI is kind of partially driven by, I want to say, a second server. But if you have a FileMaker server, I'm waving my hands, FileMaker server, then you have your clients, and there's this other server somewhere, which is going to collect this data that you want to use to train it. And a lot of us initially will do it probably outside of our companies, but you can do what? Run your own server in your office. So
Yeah.
you said that was open. What was that? Open what?
Open LLM.
Open LLM. Okay. So
Open large language model. So, and you can leverage that. And we, in installer FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Server, there's a tool section. And then inside that, there's a folder with Open LLMs. There's a README documentation, explains to you how to install basically the web server that's going to have the training engine. And then it tells you the type of engine you can use. There's a link to a place called Hugging Face where you can download your model. There's various sizes of models. You download it, you bring
okay,
the
so I
environment,
think
you send data.
I didn't understand that word, and other people didn't understand that word. What's the website that has all the models on it? Say that again.
Hugging Face.
Hugging Face.
Yeah, Hugging Face.
Hugging
Like
face.
face hugger from Alien.
Yeah. No.
As in, I give you a hug, Hugging Face.
Yeah, face huggers from Aliens. Okay, great,
Yeah.
awesome. That's a hell of a
Turn around.
visual. All right,
Check.
all right, cool. Other questions, Margaret?
Did you catch the one about there was a request to demo something, but they weren't clarifying what it was. They wanted to see, I think, either open quickly or
Can
notification.
you show open quickly real quick, Doug?
I can show open quickly, really quickly. I'll share this.
In some ways, think of it as like deep linking, right? Is I look for something and it jumps to the context that I found.
So if I do this, can you see the window? Yeah, you should be seeing it. So open quickly basically is here. You can move it around. So if I type in start, it basically shows me layout script or files that actually have those two words. So if I double click on contact list, it's basically going to open the file that had this layout. It's flicking through my recent, basically anything I've got open. If I have a script, I double click on it and it takes me directly to the script in Script Workspace.
Nope, that we all got. Cool. Thank you very much.
Very cool.
That is an easy one. We're working to potentially get it closer to what you have on Spotlight. So some people are saying basically the icons don't actually mean much. And then when you have a very long list, if I just do S, or if I just do, let's say A, I can get to actually have very, very long list. So we're going to try to see whether we can have like icons just to make everyone life a lot easier and to be able to figure out the difference between this and this. Because if I hadn't told you this was a script, a lot of people would just go, what is this versus this icon? So we're just going to try to make it as easy as we can for people to actually use it.
Another quick question, which I'm going to toss out real fast. Is OLLAMA also supported? OLLAMA.
Any type of an LLM is supported. So there are literally hundreds of thousands of LLMs being created and some being updated and some, but there's a huge amount of LLMs and you can use all of them.
I think people are processing because
There's a lot. So for those of you real quick, if you have a current subscription to the Claris FileMaker platform, you'll get an email from Claris telling you where you can download this stuff. If you have a perpetual license, which is this idea that you buy it once and you never have to buy it again, which is really a bad idea. That's the road to hell. If you're under maintenance, you'll get an update. If you're not under maintenance, please buy maintenance and stay up to date. There's a lot of security fixes ongoing with Claris on this. And once again, the next 9 days is going to be a lot of different people talking about a lot of bits and pieces. And we're going to revisit all this in great detail. Any final questions, Margaret? And Doug, Rick, anything?
Yeah, the only other thing is if you don't have any of those things that Rich mentioned, then just go download the 45-day trial. It's updated now, and you can take a look at this for the next 45 days.
Yeah, Claris.com. Check out the 45-day trial. And yeah, absolutely. Now, keep in mind, if you're on like FileMaker 17 or 18, you're not going to be able to mix that. Your server 17 can't use 21 client to talk to it, vice versa. The versions have to be fairly close. I get into the weeds on that, but it doesn't matter. Just understand that, yeah. So there's only so far you can go between really old and really new where they don't talk, right? So if you're using client, the range is if you're using 21 server, you can go back as far as 19.4.2 on your client. If you're using a 19.4.2 client, that's as old as you can be to use the latest version of or 19.4.2 server, client 21, vice versa. So that's the range everyone understands. So what that's worth. Okay. Doug, anything else? Good job.
No, so tomorrow we'll do more stuff on the server. It might be, well, we're going to try not to be sort of go too much into the weeds, but because there's going to be other sort of events afterwards. But the idea is just to show you the main work that we've done on the UI and the scheduling, and then we'll do another sort of bunch of Q&As with Connor.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, because there's questions about the persistent cache, and so that's going to come up probably in deep detail tomorrow. So, I expect that one to hit. So, there are some things we want to continue to explore and learn about with the Claris FileMaker 2024 release. All right, everyone. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Doug.
Yes, real quick community announcement. I can speak English for people who watch us. If you are trying to watch this entire week of days, we start always at 1 p.m. PST, which is 8 p.m. GMT. I don't know what that is in the 24-hour clock. I'm sorry. If you don't see our stream going and it's like 102, 103, I guarantee that we have started. Please reload your window if you are on Twitch or YouTube. And the stream should pop up in sync. So, cool. With that being said, thank you, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Love.